Welcome to Real Estate U with Lettiann.
Monica Swett with Schuster Appraisals. Thank you so much for being on our podcast today, Real Estate U with Lettiann. So welcome, Monica.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about appraisals and just an umbrella of things. So when we spoke earlier, I was saying everyone is, especially in our area, I'm not sure if it's a national thing, maybe you could tell us, that they're tax appraisals.
Right.
So that's just a small portion, but if someone's thinking appraisals, they're probably thinking, and if anyone out there is watching right now and they have a question for Monica, she can't answer why your taxes are assessed so high. She cannot do that. But can you provide us with some insight? And have you gotten calls for independent appraisals? So people are fighting the counties and with
yes.
Okay. So what does that look like?
It's mostly what I've seen has been Jackson County, because I think they were the most recent ones to reassess, and people's property taxes went up significantly. So we are getting just extra business from people wanting us to come in and do a real market value appraisal so they can take it back to the county and, say that, my house really isn't worth this.
And I'll keep looking at Andy every now and again because he's always making faces at me. So don't be alarmed for that. So a couple of things you just mentioned. You provide a market analysis, but so do we real estate professionals.
Correct.
So in your opinion, what is the difference? And Monica's she's been a licensed, certified residential appraiser since 2009. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have tons of experience here and probably seen a lot of things. What would the difference be, or do you find it might be very similar if a real estate professional is providing a market analysis? Because I've had several calls from clients saying, "Oh my word, the county has assessed me crazy this year. My house isn't even worth $700,000.
Right.
What can I do?" What's the difference between if they were to hire you as an independent appraiser versus me giving them the market analysis?
I think that's the CMA. Is that what you're
sure.
Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a fantastic tool, and it definitely uses the same, or probably the same comparables that we're going to use, and gives you sort of that ballpark range. Your house is going to fall within X and Z, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to take that CMA and just really fine tune it and really narrow those comparables and truly pick the ones that we think are the most similar, and we're going to give you this number, which is kind of silly too that we even assign one number to a house, but that is what we have to do. Although realistically it's going to fall within a range, but our range is going to be much more narrow probably than your CMA.
Gotcha. And do you think your independent appraisal, because it seems so official,
right?
And it's paid for independently by the homeowner,
correct?
Do you think that carries more weight with someone going to the county, like, "Oh, look, the appraiser has appraised my house at X amount, and you guys are $100,000 more than what they're appraising"?
Yes, I do. Okay. And I don't know, and you might be able to tell me that. Can they take a CMA to the county and fight? I think they actually have to have an appraisal to fight it.
I've given, unless someone got an independent appraisal,
you have been able.
Three clients of mine, I did provide that information, and they did go knock
that's
on the
great.
door.
I didn't know that.
Assessor's office.
That's fantastic.
And it actually worked.
And it worked.
So
that's great. Yeah.
Again, if they ended up getting an independent, I didn't know. Maybe they're comparing what I gave to what the independent. But
sure.
So moving on from that. Hang on, Monica. So, other than the county appraisals, and you also do lender appraisals.
That's the majority of our work.
Okay, so lenders reach out. Tell us a little bit about the difference between a lender appraisal, because people do get, like the consumer gets that a little bit confused when we tell a seller, "Oh, the lender's appraiser's coming out," and they'll say, "Oh, no, we already had our house appraised." So we try to talk them through the process of that the lender needs to know that the house is worth what they're lending.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So that is the bulk of our business. It's some sort of mortgage transaction, whether it's a refinance, home equity, or buying and selling. whoever they're getting that loan through has to make sure that that value is there. And so they hire us or contract us out to come and appraise the house and let them know if it.
What do you look at when you're there? Like, I've never been there. I've never been there when a lender appraiser's there. So what types of things do you look at? Can a seller do anything to prepare for your?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're obviously going to measure. You're going to get that blueprint footprint of the house, and we're going to put all the rooms in there.
And now, is this for the lender appraiser?
Yeah, this is going to be for any appraisal that we do. I will say, at least from my standpoint, regardless of whether I'm doing a lender-backed appraisal or an independent for just an individual, my process is exactly the same.
Good to know.
Yes,
Okay.
and market value is the same. So regardless of whether you want to fight your taxes or you're getting a loan, that value is still going to be market value, unless I've been directed differently by a lender, say a liquidation value or something like that. Otherwise, it's just fair market value. So I'm not going to come in low just because you want to fight your taxes or whatever.
Of course.
It should be the same no matter what the purpose of the appraisal is.
Okay.
So we'll do that. We'll measure. You're going to take pictures of every room, and it's really just about notating, the quality and the condition of things, what aspects of the home make it unique or superior or inferior to what your comparables are going to look like.
Throw some what's superior out and what's inferior out.
So inferior would just be any sort of deferred maintenance kinds of things. Just,
Like your I say basic wood rot because every house has some kind of wood
right.
rot.
Wood rot. If you've got, maybe carpets are worn, things like that. I would think it's similar to what things as an agent you're looking at, things that a buyer would be like, I'm going to have to replace this. I'm going to have to change this, but that's okay because kind of the price is right. So we can put a little money in there or whatever. And then as far as superior, just upgrades, have they renovated their kitchens, their bathrooms? Do they have significant landscaping? Just anything that's going to add to the appeal of the house. Not always does appeal equal an increase in value, but a lot of times it does.
And people think, oh, well, I've upgraded my water heater.
Right.
And I've upgraded. I'm like, well, that's not an up. That's actually maintenance.
Right. So that's great that
So,
you say that, because
yeah.
that does have people say, I just replaced my roof. Well, that's great because now your house is livable, kind of. I
Exactly.
mean, those are things that have to be done. Now, it helps sell a house, I think, and it helps just with the overall value, because if your roof is leaking, that's going to cause an issue, and the appraisal isn't probably going to be market value because you've got to adjust for that. But yeah, otherwise, those are things. And there's something I always like to say, just because a house has it doesn't make it an appeal or a beneficial factor.
Can you give an example of what?
I had a property that was just really unique, custom built, and it had basically 3 master suites. That's great, but not everybody is looking for a home with 3 master suites, so
Right.
Just because it's there doesn't mean it increases the value.
Right, and people build homes specifically to suit themselves, and don't always look ahead to,
Sure.
well, is this going to suit the next person when I go to
Right.
try to sell it?
Right.
Yeah. So, what is the best reason for someone to have their property appraised, other than, of course, the taxes, which that's just a forever thing that we'll have to deal with?
Right.
When are you getting calls from people about an independent appraisal?
Divorce situations, estates. So a lot of times with an estate, we'll do a retrospective, so that won't necessarily be current market value, but as of the date of death or something like that. A lot of times we get those calls from lawyers that just need a value there. I have a lot of clients that will call when maybe their agent is struggling a little bit with, like, I have kind of a unique property, we really don't know, or maybe there's just no sales recently, and they'll kind of contact me and say, hey, just give us an appraisal so we can kind of figure out where to list it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Yeah. I've had others where just recently I did a private one or independent where they were trying to figure out, should they, put this much money into the house to renovate it and stay, or should they put this much money in the house to kind of get it to a point to sell? What was going to benefit them the most? Mm-hmm. And so I kind of did an as is and an as repaired, and kind of showed them, okay, if you do this, here's where you might be. And it just kind of helped them decide, the path that they wanted to take with the house.
So what is the average cost of an independent appraisal?
I would say between $300 and $400 probably, which is fairly similar to what a lender appraisal is going to be. Although if that has to go through an AMC, that client is going to pay a little bit more because they're going to take that.
So AMC, I'm thinking a married couple, but what does that mean? What does that mean in the AMC theater?
Right.
A married couple. What does that mean?
Appraisal management companies.
Okay.
So a lot of lenders have chosen to go that route just to stay independent, and so they don't necessarily. Lenders really aren't picking their appraisers anymore for the most part. So they use an AMC with a panel of approved appraisers, and then that AMC will assign the appraisal. So it kind of keeps things
even and fair
and hopefully not influenced or anything,
So no one's taking you out to dinner every Friday night and
not anymore.
Boozing you out. Yeah. The reins have gotten tight.
Yes. Yeah.
No, that's good to know because I wondered if a lender has a certain appraiser they use constantly or consistently, but that's not the case. You're saying with this AMC.
I mean, yes and no. I think I have several clients that I'm probably one of their preferred appraisers, so I might get used a little bit more. But there is a sort of rotation, and they're not specifically saying, we want Monica to do this one, just that she's on our panel. Maybe use her more. Kind of a thing, but they're still not,
But you're in that, the consortium of a pool of people that
Correct.
they can pick, right? And so tell us a little bit about Schuster Appraisals. That is a locally owned company, correct?
Yes.
And when did it start? Who's Schuster? Because your name is Sweat,
right?
So you're not Monica Schuster.
No, so that's Robert Schuster and Toby Breer. They are the co-owners of Schuster Appraisals.
I missed the first.
Robert Schuster.
Okay.
And then Toby Breer, who's my brother-in-law.
Right. And
Yeah.
I know
So-
Toby. Great guy.
Yeah. So we're small. There's just the three of us appraisers. We have an office manager. And then we're just here local. We cover 10 counties between the two states.
Not just. Don't say just. We are local.
We are local.
And we are small but mighty.
Yes, we are.
And I say we because I'm talking about my company, independently owned and operated, local business. I'm a huge advocate of supporting local. So whenever possible, what you eat, drink, sell, and anything else, find somebody local.
I agree.
And somebody local that you can trust.
Yes.
We all meet people along the way and we make relationships. And I always say those are relationships for life. So anyway, any other closing comments or any other advice you can give to people? And again, if they know, for example, today is today Monday? No. Tuesday. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yesterday at 4:00, I have a seller and the lender appraiser was coming over yesterday at 4:00. And they said, well, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
And you can't really scramble and go replace all your replying because then you're modifying what the buyer is intending to purchase and all of that. So really it's just, here I am, the door's open, fingers crossed kind of a thing.
As far as preparing, especially whether it's a refinance or a purchase, so I'm either talking to an agent or I'm talking to the owners, but I just, the questions we're going to have are, what have you done to the house in, say, 5 to 10 years? Have you replaced the roof, the HVAC, the water heater?
What if they're not home?
If they're not, if they're not home, then I'll just ask the agent. And a lot of times those things are in the seller's disclosures too. So I make sure I always look at that even before I go out to the house. So I kind of have an idea of what I'm looking at, what I'm getting into. And then afterwards, if I have questions or, a lot of it's obvious. I can tell you renovated your kitchen and your bathroom, but maybe I don't know when. So I'm going to ask you, the agent, okay, when did they do this, this, and this? Is there anything that they've done that maybe wasn't obvious to me? And then as a, refinance or something, those are questions that when I call to make the appointment, I'll say, hey, between now and then, compile a little list for me. That way, when I come out, I kind of know, and then that kind of helps them to regurgitate what they've done. Because, you've been in a house for a while, it's constant.
And you tend to forget. I mean, we forget what we just did.
Yeah.
So do agents hound you, for lack of a better word, if they're sweating the appraisal? Sometimes we're sweating it.
Sure.
I'll reach out to an appraiser and say, if you are struggling with finding comps, I'm going to show you where we came up with this price because I'm all about facts. So when I price a home, I think it's very important There was a house one time, I had a buyer, and I said to the listing agent, where in God's name did you come up with this price? Do you know what she said? Oh, my seller's birthday was May 25th, so we just decided to price the house at $525,000. I'm like, well, you're $25,000 overpriced. I mean, that's a crap shit. I mean, I was like, what? And you know, huh? So we were kind of sweating that appraisal, although we negotiated I presented my facts with, okay.
Knowing what the value should be.
Happy birthday, but that 25 grand is not going to you.
Right.
So we actually came down and the house sold for 505 and it appraised and all of that. But do agents still reach out? Sometimes I will to the appraiser and say, if you need help, let me know.
I think so. Okay. And I know, I can't speak for all appraisers because I know some really are just, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want, but I'm happy when somebody says, here, I've got some comps. This is why we listed the house where we listed it. I'll just leave them at the house for you. I'll email them to you. I am happy to look at that because there's got to be a reason that you listed the house where you did.
Well,
right?
Someone's birthday.
I mean, and hopefully it's a legitimate reason. But I'll do the same if I'm struggling and I'm just not getting the value for whatever reason. And I'll call the agent and say, listen, before I send this off, let's put our heads together. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there was a private sale you knew about that I just didn't have access to. Like, what did you use to determine your list price? And then, I can tell you where I'm at. Let's figure this out. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's kind of my policy as well. I mean, I feel like we're all really on the same team.
Well, we should be.
Keep a good, stable market, keep it growing, and, but not everybody feels the same way.
And that's unfortunate because it's kind of like we're humans. Can't we all play nice in the sandbox together? And we're all just looking for the same result and getting the end. We've got about 1 minute left. But I wanted to say, too, there's some neighborhoods that I sell frequently. And I'll get appraisers calling me, I'm doing an appraisal, maybe nothing to do with one of my homes. But they'll say, can you help me? What's the basement finish at this address and what's that address? And I realize that they're doing their job. So, I really try hard not to be short. I try to help them through it because, again, we're here to help each other.
Yes, and that's fantastic. And I know MLS has kind of changed the way they do things and what's required now, so that's been really helpful for us. But that was the case with new construction. We could only go to you and say...
It is new construction, in fact. How did you know that?
Otherwise, we have no access to information. So it's really helpful when agents are able and willing to provide that for us.
Monica, what a great bit of information. So Monica Sweat, she's with Schuster Appraisals, again, a locally owned company here in the Kansas City metro area. Monica, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. Hope you'll be back.
Thank you.